Today I want to calmly explain something that's happening with the new show Are You Sure? That has generated a lot of misunderstandings, especially because some Jungkook fans are taking clips from the show and modifying them to make their ship seem real. The problem isn't just the confusion, but how certain people edit scenes, put together parts that don't belong together, and make a completely normal situation look like something that never happened. And this directly affects Jungkook, who doesn't deserve to have misinformation spread using his image or words. After the episode filmed in Seoul, there was a moment where Jimin tried to joke around by asking Jungkook to take him home. The scene was clearly a joke, but Jungkook simply remained silent and acted as if he hadn't heard anything. There was no reaction that indicated any special closeness or intention beyond a failed joke. It was a brief moment, but enough for some to take it out of context. Later, in another scene, Jimin tried to imply that he and Jungkook had spent the night together. That insinuation lasted only a few seconds, because Jungkook immediately interrupted to clarify that he had been with Bam. Jimin's reaction showed discomfort because it was clear the insinuation wasn't true. Basically, Jungkook stopped him because the claim was unfounded and he didn't want it to be misinterpreted. Just an off-the-cuff comment that Jungkook corrected without giving it much thought. Even though this was clearly shown on the show, some Jungkook fans took isolated snippets, mixed them with old footage, and edited them in a way that suggested Jungkook and Jimin live or sleep together. They did this using a scene from Switzerland, where the conversation was actually about Jungkook's time in the military. Jungkook even said, "Wait, can we talk?" showing that he wanted to explain things properly. It's important to remember that throughout the entire show, the staff was with them at all times. They shared the same house, but everyone slept there: staff members, camera crew, and equipment. There were no private moments between them, no one-on-one time that would allow for the theories some are inventing. Any interpretation that changes that is simply manipulation. For those of us who are Taekook fans, this isn't surprising. In reality, these kinds of distortions have been around for a long time. But now it stands out more because, while some are trying hard to maintain a ship that has no basis, the truth eventually comes to light. And this program made it even more evident, especially knowing that the relationship between Jimin and Dian would later be confirmed, something the company ended up officially acknowledging. The truth was there all along, but many preferred to ignore it. This isn't about attacking anyone, but about clarifying the facts. It's tiring to see certain people go to such lengths just to maintain an idea that never existed. That's why it was necessary to talk about the issue as it is, without embellishments or exaggerations. Fabricated stories don't change reality, and what actually happened is fully documented in the program itself. In recent days, a rumor that had already been debunked long ago resurfaced. This time, they edited a tattoo on Jungkook's arm during a variety show, attempting to link it to winter and create a completely unfounded story. What they did was not only false but also easily verifiable. If that tattoo had actually existed, it would have appeared in the gym blog that Jungkook recorded some time ago, a video in which he was accompanied by Taehyung and where several angles of his body were shown without the supposed design. The tattoo has never been there because it simply doesn't exist. Once again, the jokers failed in their attempt to create a fabricated narrative. What's most striking is that the sudden appearance of this rumor wasn't a coincidence. It emerged just hours after it was announced that Bongo's shares had been frozen. The reappearance of the fake story coincides too well with that news, making it clear that they tried to shift the focus to Jungkook to distract the public from the real issue, which is Bongo. Every time an external controversy arises, they try to use Taekook as a smokescreen. That's why it's important not to fall into these traps and not to believe anything that doesn't come directly from reliable sources, much less rumors created to manipulate the conversation. And since tattoos were mentioned, it's a good time to remember Jungkook's real tattoos, especially the V symbol. That design has been a significant detail for him for years and has appeared multiple times in public. One of the most recent reminders was during his dance challenge with Bada Lee, in which he showed the tattoo with complete naturalness. Jungkook isn't someone who directly explains his thoughts all the time. His way of communicating is usually through actions, gestures, and details that speak for themselves. That's why, for those who have followed Taekook's story and dynamic for years, many of these moments are understood without words. It's clear to whom he's directing certain signals, whom he deeply respects, and with whom he shares a special connection. Over the years, Taehyung and Jungkook have displayed a closeness that remains undiminished by time. Every gesture, every coincidence, and every joint appearance reinforces the idea that their relationship is built on a genuine connection. It's not something that needs constant proof, it's evident in how naturally it flows between them. Sometimes, those who support the Taekook narrative only need to observe the signs that have been present from the beginning. They aren't exaggerated or forced, they're simply there, repeated throughout the years. And when the jokers try to create false stories, they ironically end up reminding the fandom that there are many real and meaningful moments that don't need manipulation. In this case, their failed attempt only served to bring authentic memories back into the conversation, especially those related to gym days, shared recordings, and the way Taehyung and Jungkook behaved when they were together. It's those moments that truly showcase the essence of Taekook. Currently, Taekook appears less frequently at events or in shared public moments. However, this decrease doesn't mean their relationship has changed. For those who have followed their story over the years, the foundation they've built remains strong. Some periods show their closeness more clearly, while others are more discreet, but it never disappears. The lack of constant displays doesn't alter what they've maintained over time because their bond doesn't depend on continuous displays to remain stable. Jungkook doesn't usually explain his ideas directly. His communication style relies more on specific actions, measured gestures, and small behaviors that reveal what he's thinking without needing to say much. For those who have observed Taekook's dynamic for years, these details are easy to identify. They don't require explanation because it's clear who certain actions are directed toward, who he shows special consideration to, and in whom he places a level of trust that he doesn't share in the same way with others. Over time, they've demonstrated a very particular way of interacting. It's not about forced gestures or putting on a show for the public. It's evident in the way they seek each other out without needing to point it out, in the quick glances they exchange, and in those brief touches that seem simple but reveal a natural connection between them. When they're near each other, the attention they give one another is obvious, even when they're not saying a word. This kind of behavior isn't manufactured or sustained by obligation, it's a relationship born of habit and mutual understanding. Many fans remember past moments that defined the essence of their bond. These aren't grand scenes or elaborate speeches, but specific situations where their closeness became spontaneously visible. These moments established a reference point that helps explain why, even now that they appear together less frequently, there's no sense of a rift. What they shared before built a foundation that doesn't need to be repeated every day to endure. The contrast between how they present themselves to others and what happens when they're together is another point that fans easily recognize. No matter how much the circumstances around them change, there's always a moment when you notice that special attention they reserve for each other. It's a constant that doesn't appear with the same level of naturalness with anyone else. For many, that's enough to understand that Taehyung and Jungkook's relationship doesn't depend on public displays or repeated words. It's sustained by the way they recognize each other, by the way they adjust their behavior when they're close, and by those gestures that, although they may seem minimal, point to a distinct connection. They don't need to talk about it because their actions have been clear for years. In short, Taekook doesn't need constant presence to demonstrate what they built. Their relationship is maintained in what isn't said, in what is effortlessly noticeable, and in the consistency they've maintained from the beginning. Days can go by without them sharing visible moments, but every time they meet again, the way they interact makes it clear that nothing has been replaced. Taehyung and Jungkook maintain their own recognizable and constant dynamic, which,